right, here we go. Here's Computer Cuisine Deluxe 9.0, and this tutorial is for the conversions menu. So I'm going to give you a little step-by-step on how to use the conversions menu, and it's very straightforward, but just want to highlight little things that may or may not be obvious to some. So I have a lot of mathematical formulas that I built into this program, but they're in the back end so that it makes it very easy for the end user yourself to just simply type in a measurement in any of these gray boxes on the left hand side, and the equivalent measurement will be calculated, and the result in these boxes on the right. So I broke down sort of groups into the US to metric measurements, temperature and size, metric to US measurements, and then fractions. There's obviously, these are self-explanatory with temperature conversions just on the fly if you need a glance. But for example, if you need, let's say, how many cups into milliliters, let's say you wanted to do, let's do 8 cups. You do 8 cups, and then once you just click off here or hit enter on your keyboard, it will automatically update the equivalent in milliliters right there. Let's say it was Fahrenheit and you wanted to do, let's do 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees, and that is 29.4 degrees Celsius. Now, again, these are all self-explanatory, and people are going to want to focus on the gray boxes because that's where you enter in the information. These are not, you can't enter any information here because once you try, it's not modifiable because it's the end result of what's happening on the gray box. So only enter in the gray box, and then you can see the equivalent on the right. Now, lastly is the fractions multiplier. This is, I think, really helpful because sometimes you need to double a recipe, maybe even triple a recipe or what have you, and it's in fractions. And I don't know if you're that great at math, but it's sometimes not so easy to do fractions just on the fly. So for example, let's say you have 3/8 and you need to multiply this by, 5. Then once you click off here, you will see that the end result is 1 7/8. Okay, very simple. But it's actually a pretty complex formula in the back end, but that's all set up so that it's easy for you. So let's say you have a quarter. Let's do 1/4. So you got 1/4. And obviously if you multiply by 4, you're going to have 1, right? So here's 1. But let's say it's a little bit more difficult where it's a quarter multiplied by 17. All right? Then it's going to be 4 1/4. All right? Or let's say this is like 1/16. Okay, 1/16 multiplied by 17. Oops. Then you just click here. That's 1/16, obviously, right? But what if that multiplier is a lot more difficult, like 37, right? Then you have 2 5/16. So again, it's going to update this on the fly based on your multiplier and fractions. So this is really helpful when scaling recipes on your own, or just sort of having to do anything with baking in particular, where there may be cups of flour and it's partial fractions and such. The last thing are baking substitutions here, and there's a little arrow here because you're encouraged to click on this, because sometimes if you run out of a particular item, you can substitute. And so if you don't have breadcrumbs, okay, you can, 1 cup of breadcrumbs is 3/4 of a cup of cracker crumbs. You can do the same thing for broth. Let's say you don't have 1 cup of chicken broth. Well, you can use 1 bouillon cube or 1 teaspoon, and then you mix it with 1 cup of boiling water. That's the proper ratio, and so on. So you may want to scroll through this because there's a long list of baking substitutions that could help you in the long run. And this whole area right here is just found once again in the conversions menu button. Thanks.